Welcome to Upfront on the Voice of America. My name is Jackson Vunganyi. Now, South Sudan gained independence from Sudan on July 9th of 2011. Its independence marked the end of one of Africa's longest-running civil wars and the creation of Africa's 54th state. South Sudanese celebrated and thereafter embarked on a process of building a country that is home to over 60 different ethnic groups. However, the jubilations were short-lived as political tensions in the new ruling coalition began to manifest themselves a few months after the country celebrated the second anniversary of its independence. What followed is a civil war that just entered its fifth year. The conflict is responsible for the death of an estimated 50,000 people and the displacement of over 4 million others. Analysts say that it is hard to fully understand the scale and impact that the conflict continues to have on the lives of South Sudanese, partly because of the fog of war, much of it due to the poor infrastructure in the country, but the other is due to the deliberate suppression of the media by the government of South Sudan. This censorship, which has been called out by various media watchdog groups and human rights organizations, affects reporters covering the conflict on the ground and from outside the country. And as much as the story of South Sudan is that of conflict, it is also very much about its government's attempt to limit access to information about that conflict by essentially muzzling the free press. And there is perhaps no one that understands both dynamics that John Tanza Mabusu. John is the host and managing editor of Voice of America South Sudan in Focus.
I'm going to host a show and hopefully bring good news to the people of South Sudan. You know, we always talk about bad news, but I hope to break a good news today. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, this is where I normally sit to host the show. It's a little bit exciting while you sit here talking to people in their millions, all listening to you.
Standby mic. Open mic, music under, hold music.
Good evening and welcome to South Sudan in Focus on the Voice of America. I'm John Tanza in Washington. Here are some of the stories we are covering today. The journalism is digging deeper and getting all sides to the story. So that's what we do.
One of the main sources of information in South Sudan is radio. South Sudan in Focus, which has been on air for over 5 years, now reaches a good number of the population in the country.
We are listened to in most of the cities in South Sudan, like big cities, Juba, Wau, Bor. Sorry, Wau, our FM there is not working. So I would say Juba, Bor, Yei, Yambio, Maridi, and of late we are looking at putting something up in the areas of Wau and Bentiu. So we are in all the 10 states in South Sudan. All right. Here we go.
Oh, okay. Hello. All right, so we got a bunch going on, including a live video or phone call. You know, just same old South Sudan politics. Hello. We've got a lot going on today, so stay tuned.
The organization Reporters Without Borders says that journalists in South Sudan are forced by the government to remain silent on issues related to the conflict. And because of this censorship, journalists operate in an environment of fear. John is well aware of what happens when you cross that line.
They confiscated my passport. My passport was confiscated during renewal. Up to now, I don't have a South Sudanese passport because the government deemed that my work is not objective. That's what, according to them, that's not objective. But it's just because I ask them the type of questions that they're not used to. So when you ask them tough questions, they think you are advancing a different agenda. And so that's the price I've paid so far for my work.
John says that in this age of fake news, without the work of professional reporters often taking risks to cover the stories, it will be hard to understand the dynamics of the evolving conflict in his country.
It's a country with a complex situation where the fighting is among people who are one. It's like a family. It's a fight between family members, and so this is what is happening in South Sudan. And the fact that the way it's reported, sometimes there is a little bit of misreporting there when people say it is one tribe against the other. That's not really the issue. The issue here is the leaders disagreed, and then they kind of cultivated followers from their communities. And so if the fight is between the rebels and government troops are not made up of one tribe. Every tribe is in the government. So if you say a fight between tribe A and tribe B, that's misrepresentation.
It is hard to overstate the importance of a free media in South Sudan, as it is anywhere else in the world. Aid agencies say that millions of people in the country, in South Sudan, need food aid and other kinds of support. But the persistent and pernicious consequences of media suppression make it hard for these aid agencies, the UN and others, to provide relief to the population if they don't have information to fully understand the issues driving this conflict and the extent to which people are suffering. In 2016, United Nations report warned that partisans on all sides of the conflict used media, especially social media, to spread falsehoods. Each side wants to show that they are not to blame for the suffering of their people in their country. And that's why it is necessary for reporters like John Tans and others on the ground in South Sudan and outside of South Sudan covering this conflict to continue doing their work unimpeded as they help lift the fog of war.
We report about fighting every day and people who don't want to keep to the rules of the game. There was a peace agreement signed, but none of these warring parties are respecting it. So that's what we report on every day. It's very frustrating, but life has to continue. Because journalism it's a difficult job. I normally tell my colleagues, journalism is not a love affair.